We are not alone. You are watching Contact TV with your hosts, Leslie Mitchell-Clark
and Wes Roberts,
exploring ufology, metaphysics, and beyond with the world's foremost experts. Good evening, friends, or good morning, or good day, or um, uh, good brunch, or whatever whatever happens to be going on. And welcome to another episode of Contact TV. And as always, your venerable co-hosts are here. Myself, Leslie Mitchell-Clark, and I'm joined as always by Wes Roberts. Say hi, Wes.
Hi, Wes.
Anyway, we are happy that you have joined us for another episode. This is season 13 of Contact TV. It's hard to believe, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And, you know, Wes, you have not aged a day. I, on the other hand, feel so old that I believe that my blood type has been discontinued.
Soft focus, whatever.
That's right. I've got every kind of thing going here that you can have on
No,
Zoom.
me.
Oh, no, not you, not you. I'm stepping up to the complete Lucille Ball, which is being photographed through linoleum. That's coming up in the not too distant future. Anyway, aside from that, we are thrilled that you are here, and we are thrilled to be welcoming not only a wonderful friend from these many years in the ufology world, but also a talented and certified remote viewer and instructor with expertise in controlled remote viewing. And I'm talking about, of course, Michelle Freed. And she is here with us this evening. She's talking to us from the Windy City, which has a fresh blanket of snow. And Michelle has completed programs through organizations like APP, Right Hemisphere, and Intuitive Specialties. And she has also received additional training from Joe McMoneagle. And Michelle is an active member of IRVA and has conducted notable research in the field of remote viewing. And her exceptional work has earned her recognition, including the prestigious Warcollier Prize in 2017, 217. Very nice, lovely. And and you can find her published contributions in all kinds of esteemed publications, such as the Journal of Psychical Research and the Parapsychology Association. So we are absolutely thrilled to welcome to Contact TV our dear friend, Michelle Freed. Michelle, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, it's been a long enough time. And I was just saying to Wes before we got on the air that with all of the people that we have interviewed and all of the, shall I say, high strangeness that we have swam through over the past 13 years, we have never had anyone on the program that has really been actively working in remote viewing. And I'm just going to read this very lovely quote that you have here. Remote viewing is not just a supernatural phenomena, but it is also a testament to the boundless capabilities of the human mind. By delving into the realm of remote viewing, we challenge conventional notions of reality and unlock the hidden potential within ourselves. So Michelle, tell us a little bit about, if you can, the remote viewing process as you teach it and work with it. And Michelle, now I wonder if you could give us sort of a descriptive idea about what your practice and what you teach are involved with the process of remote viewing. Is it astral projection? Is it something else? Please let us know. I'm completely anxious to hear what you have to say on this.
Well, I'd like to start by the reference to the quote, which is my remote viewing is my obsession and my passion, and I and behind me teaching it is that I believe that everybody should be using remote viewing, because I really believe that it will improve your life. because there's so many uses for it. And I don't think a lot of people realize how many things that we can use remote viewing for.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that has drawn me to this kind of, I guess we can call it a modality, is that it is kind of set up in a scientific way. I don't want to say it's for sure science, because unfortunately, we don't really have a method to measure things that are unmeasurable. You know, it's really hard to measure things that are intangible, which remote viewing is. You know, we're using our consciousness, our subconscious, and it's really hard to measure that. There are ways that people are figuring out how to do that. And that's why some of the research that I've done, we've done a lot of experiments, which I think you mentioned in my bio that we have some published papers
Mm-hmm.
that really show that it does work. So what we do is we apply what we can to the science method that we can. But one of the most important things about remote viewing, which I train, is that the viewer is blind to the target. And that is a
Mm-hmm.
really important aspect of remote viewing. It's the fact that, you know, we use a random target number to kind of organize our sessions or our projects. But in theory, you really don't even need a number. It's really about intention and the secret question that your manager will write up, and it's written in a certain way. So, so basically, in the process of remote viewing, you're learning different phases that help you kind of unpack information that comes to you from your subconscious.
Mm-hmm.
That's a quick way.
Wow, that is fascinating. So, when you get ready for a remote viewing session, do you put yourself into the alpha state? Are you in a any particular form of consciousness?
So so there's, you know, the aspects of, you know, the manager and the viewer. So part of the job of a viewer is to put yourself into kind of, we call it a cool down. You want to start your session in a place of not knowing anything. You want to
Mm-hmm.
be kind of blank. So we do a cool down, and it's not really, people can do whatever they want. It's just an idea of just relaxing everything. A lot of people will use binaural beats. Some I created a kind of a meditation, a guided meditation. And I can explain later the reason why I created this one. But we use guided imagery of a gauge. And the gauge is, we use a knob or a dial or an arrow or whatever we want. And the idea is to set an intention to turn down your left brain and turn up your right brain. Because we
Mm-hmm.
want to be, for our sessions, we want to be working in our subconscious.
I see. Mm-hmm. So you're getting the conscious mind out of the way, so to speak, in the sense that we do also in hypnotherapy and particularly in regression. So
Yeah.
that's what you're doing. Now, Wes, does this, do you also in your discipline, do you go into an altered state, an alpha state, or a theta state before doing this kind of work?
So you do, especially when you do extended remote viewing, you hit some light theta stages. You go through the cool down as well, as
Mm-hmm.
Michelle was saying. In the ways I learned about it, we used pink noise and some guided meditation periodically. And eventually, 20, 30 minutes in, you're going to access, well, Michelle can explain that. You'll access the information.
I see. And in seeing some of the actually something that you sent to me, Michelle, when my cat was lost, actually she just actively didn't want to come back. She was very wild. But what I noticed was a lot of locations, what I would consider like map locations. Now, for someone like me, I'm dyslexic, especially for numbers. So I would have a very hard time doing that, I think. But tell me how that, because that's not a series of numbers is not a easy focal point for everyone.
So the numbers, what we call target numbers, or we call them TRN or coordinates or whatever. I've done projects in the past where we don't even use numbers. They
Mm-hmm.
just say, Michelle, do your thing. So the numbers, in my opinion, or the way I see numbers, is just a way to organize projects so that we're all looking at the same project, and it's easier to, in an administrative way, to go through the data so that everyone's looking at the same papers. Some people will use them as kind of a like a phone number. They're using the numbers to line themselves up with that secret question. But when I train, I don't really train that way.
Mm-hmm.
I really, the numbers are for me an administrative thing, and I just pick random numbers to keep things organized. Uh, but there are other things that we do through the process of remote viewing.
Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing that if you're looking for someone or something, you don't necessarily have the coordinates of where that person or that item exists. But I would imagine if you're all trying to focus in on a certain location and all the consciousness is going to that point, then you could use, latitude and longitude and however it works in your mind, because some of that would be a subconscious action, I'm guessing.
So basically, if when in the past when I've worked on missing people, there are a couple things that go on. One is if you're working with detectives, a lot of time, so you know how in life there's a exception for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's also a little bit of an exception when I say that you have to be blind to the target. Sometimes, and this is why we train so hard, is sometimes if you're working on an operational case and you're working to help find missing people or solve a crime, the detectives, they already know what they know and they don't want you to repeat the information they have.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times this is a timing thing, it's urgent. So the viewers will know something so that they don't spend a lot of time in their session describing and locating things that the detectives don't care about.
Right.
A lot of, we do it in practice for sure they're blind and whatever, but in certain circumstances, and we have to be trained so that we can not get sucked into that kind of making up stories in our head,
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
is probably a good place for me to explain my gauge, why I use this gauge and why left brain and right brain are so important, which is Joe McMonagle, who I think, Wes, you learned remote viewing from.
I went to some of his things and mainly through David Morehouse.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Joe said, in order to be a world-class remote viewer, you need to give up what it is to be human.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what the heck does that mean? And so he's like, so I thought about it, we talked about it, and really what it means is, and it is the answer when people come to us and say, well, if you are psychic, then why aren't you a millionaire? Well, this is the reason. The reason is because we're human and our natural instinct is to find patterns and to find things that are, you know, whatever the patterns are. So the common example we use is, we'll say, if I'm observing, or I'm getting the impression of something that's red and it's shiny and it's round, my left brain is gonna like be like a computer, and it's gonna go tuk, 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 what's red, what's shiny, what's round, and the first thing that comes up is apple. But there are a lot of red, shiny, round things in the world. But my left brain is going to go to apple. And what happens is, if you're not well trained, well practiced, what happens is you start building a story around an apple. And if you're looking for a missing person, the apple and then a fruit basket is not going to really help you unless that missing person is surrounded by a fruit basket. But it could be a truck you're describing or beginning to describe. Red, it's shiny, it's round. I mean, eventually you would start getting to automatic, or whatever, metallic, but your left brain wants everything to make sense. And so we have to figure out how to manage our left brain and our right brain. And it is probably, I don't know if it's something we could ever overcome. We can in spurts, we can overcome it. That's why we get good hits sometimes.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that our world, like, we all wear different lenses and we see the world differently. So our human experience is going to look at something and name it differently than somebody else would. So that is a really very important aspect of remote viewing. And the truth is, anything psychic or even hypnosis.
Yes. In fact, there's something I would like to ask, that I would like to ask both of you, actually. Do you feel that this information that you are acquiring through the remote viewing technique is available in, the Akasha, like a giant, computer? Is it, if we just relax, is it available to us? Is that part of it? It seems to me you're trying to find the information that you seek without, in a sense, polluting it with emotional overlays. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And what do you both think about that? Wes, what do you think about that? Is the information just out there? Can you sort of, after you've been doing this for a while, can you sort of go in and just pick it out?
So overlays is a good term. They call them analytical overlays. So very close
Okay.
to the money. All information, in my opinion, is in space-time, always accessible. And how you get from A to B is kind of what your discipline's all about. Remote viewing has helped me move away from merely using psychic prowess, if I have any. So I have some psychic capability, which lends itself to my viewing. And so, as Michelle was so eloquently saying, a red round thing isn't necessarily that thing. Put it off to the side. It may come back to actually have been that thing, but put it off to the side initially and just talk about red, talk about texture, talk about touch, talk about feeling. But it's somewhere in space-time. And all space-time is always available. That would be my take on it.
Michelle?
Well, so I'm going, my training in hypnosis always bleeds into remote viewing. And one of the very first things that they taught us is that your subconscious has permanent memory. It knows everything. And that's where we're operating from, or where we want to be. We want to be in the subconscious. And we want to kind of keep the conscious just enough so that we can sit up straight, we can breathe, and we can draw on paper. That's all we need the left brain to be doing. And so a lot of the things, the people that have come up with this protocol are geniuses, because they somehow understood all this. And a lot of the protocol is about keeping that left brain busy so that your right brain can do what it needs to do its job. So that's a very important part of it.
Yeah, I think that it is. And do you think that some individuals, whether they're working with just, not just, but whether they're working with psychic abilities or a established technique such as remote viewing, do you think it's possible that sometimes when things come out as inaccurate, that they've simply jumped into another timeline,
Um, I,
another reality, as it were?
Possible, but the way that remote viewing works, it's all set up by the secret question. And if you're following the directions, if your subconscious is doing what its job is, and you're well trained, you're going to stay on target. You're everything that I teach is about staying focused
I
on
see.
information that you're
Mhm.
supposed to find.
Okay.
And each section, each phase that we go into layers on top of the other, you know?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so that's the reason it's a very structured, unlike there's a lot of other people say, oh, I remote view. And that to me is more like a freestyle where they just,
Hmm.
maybe what you're saying, it could happen.
Yeah, I think that is what I mean. Probably if someone is not using structured discipline and they simply are very psychic and they've achieved the alpha state, they could be traveling anywhere. So they're not necessarily confabulating when they come back and say, I saw
Right.
this, this, and this, but they could simply be traveling in another potential timeline.
But
I
I'll
think,
also bring up another point, another exception is that if the secret question is not specific, that can also throw off the viewer. So, for
mm,
example, if I have a secret question, go to the location of the pyramids and describe. I didn't say when. So people could be going when they were built, like they could
yeah,
be going in the future because
hmm,
I wasn't specific.
right.
So in that intention question, the secret question, you have to be very specific. So, for example, if we're looking for a missing person, I'm going to say, what is the current location of so and so? Or what is the current condition of so and so?
Hmm.
And then they don't know that. And then they're doing everything in their paper is, and a lot of times they're saying, what does the tasker want to know? You keep reminding yourself over and over again, what does the tasker want to know? So you keep pulling yourself back if you start floating away.
Hmm.
That way, and that's why we practice a lot because
Yeah, yeah.
it is it is a discipline.
I see that, and I see that it requires a very specific type of focus. Now, I think I've seen, but maybe in watching some documentaries on this kind of subject matter, are there some disciplines of remote viewing where some kind of electronics or machinery is used?
Um, I think what I'm aware of would only be things that help you in your cool down stage.
Hmm.
I'm not sure, like once you're doing the process, I'm not aware of anything
Hmm.
like while you're, working in session,
I
but
see.
definitely getting to a place, meditation is also a skill
Hmm.
um and to find a place where you're in the black pearl, the nothing, so you don't have any preconceived ideas or biases, or because the minute I say to, like, for example, my students, when I say to them, okay, I have a target for you, they get something because I
Mm.
put the idea in their head and they're like, they get something. So we actually have a page for that. We call it advanced perception. So
Oh.
they can get rid of that again, and they don't build a story around an advanced perception.
Mhm.
Sometimes those are correct, but it's so few times that it's not worth it to hold on to it. So they get what they get, they turn the page over, and then they start their session.
I
Um,
see.
so it is like a little bit of suggestion.
Yeah.
Oh, they'll start getting like mind chatter, like, what's Michelle gonna pick? What's she gonna do? So I always have to pick dynamic targets that they never expect me to pick, because they're always trying to get into my head, which is a problem too. I say, don't remote view me, don't view your friends, just go to the target, because it's like, it's like remote viewing ADD. We all
Yes. That's very funny. I have to use that somehow. People with ADD make excellent remote viewers, but just doesn't last too long. But anyway,
exactly.
Wes, what do you think about that? Is it do you feel, because I know you much, I suppose the part of you that is much more intuitive and psychically inclined and using your intuition and using your feelings. Do you have any difficulty getting into that more disciplined and focused headspace that remote viewing seems to require?
So there are two main branches, more than that, but coordinate remote viewing, which we're chatting about now, and extended remote viewing, where you go to the target and stay there. And then you come back and report back on it. So I do better with extended remote viewing, immersing myself in the target location, moving backwards, forward, up, down, widening my point of view, that kind of thing. But the tasking, as Michelle is saying, the tasking at first is significant. And just a small example, not to take away from the rest of the interview, we were asked to view the Taj Mahal, but not for the typical reasons at all. For some pretty ugly history. So we were asked to view the Taj Mahal, and certain things we explored and encountered were the real deal, the more insidious parts of it, let's say. So the tasking has to be on the money, because the tasker, as Michelle would be here in most cases, has to have her intent behind the task, and that intent is conveyed. And if there's any front loading, so to speak, that's as much as you should need.
I see. So is there always a tasker or a manager or someone who is directing the group in some way? Maybe not directing, but has the information that is required.
Well, you can also, usually when you're doing an operational target, it's best to keep everything, structured and clean. But if you're practicing, a lot of times I'll tell people to just write a whole bunch of questions on pieces of paper, and then stick them in a hat, and then pull out or put them in an envelope or something, and pull out the envelope. That way they don't know what the target is, and it's really good practice. And it helps them practice writing the tasking, because the tasking is not easy. I mean, you really have to think about it. You have to think about, what do we really want to know about this? Like Wes said, like, we don't just want you to go and describe the Taj Mahal. We have an actual particular thing we want to know about the Taj Mahal. And so you can even write the date, like describe the event on this date at the Taj Mahal. Like, you have to be very, if you want someone to make a timeline, you would say what happened before, what happened during, and what happened after, which those are other things that we teach in more advanced classes. We kind of mapping, triangulation, dowsing. We even sometimes, Wes, did you work with Play-Doh?
No, but I worked with maps. And this was not part of my training. A bunch of us were called back to do map dowsing, vertically and horizontally.
Yeah, yeah. So
very cool.
There's so many different tools that we have. So to me, this is really a skill. And the thing is that after all the years, I've been doing it about 10 years or more, maybe by now. And I've applied a lot of the concepts, especially the AOL, the idea that we want to draw a conclusion or make an assumption about something, which is a big no-no. That idea on a personal lesson for me, I apply in my everyday life because I through remote viewing, I realized how many times I do that. I draw conclusions, I make assumptions, and really 99% of the time I'm wrong. And so it really opened up a big door for me. And that's why I just love remote viewing, because there's um, so many lessons that can be applied to our everyday life. There are targets that in my practice years, well, I'm still practicing and learning though, but in the beginning, I had this amazing partner, and he was always very unexpected with the targets. And sometimes he'd throw in personal questions. So because I didn't know what the target was. So one of them was, what foods should Michelle stay away from? Well, I had no idea he would ask, that would be my question. But guess what? In my session, it was so weird because I was drawing pictures of DNA, like two swirly lines. I wrote the word DNA, I wrote GMO, and then this spongy thing that I think maybe it meant mushrooms. I don't know, but I still eat them. Sorry. But you can also use remote viewing to task someone to go back to a past life and bring back skill from that life. Bring back a skill that you can take and bring it into this life.
Yeah.
So
fantastic.
Sensible stuff like, I have a job. There's also another technique that we didn't even talk about in remote viewing called ARV, which is called associative remote viewing. And this is using a binary target. So should I wear the red dress or the blue dress? Should I buy this stock? Is that stock going to go up or down? They can wager on sporting events. They can use this for cryptocurrency. There's a ton of things so again, when people say, why aren't you making money? I can tell you a ton of people that are making a ton of money using their psychic ability.
Yeah. I'm sure that has always been the case too. However, I think when you start doing things for perhaps selfish gain, it becomes a little bit more complex. But now if I'm understanding what you guys are saying correctly now, it is because it's all space-time, all the information is out there. You can remote view a point in history if you are specific. In other words, you could go to Bosworth Field at the time of the big battle where Richard III was killed and say, what kind of horse was he riding? Or so, but it's really time travel in a sense, because you could use this technique to travel to really any point in history. The destruction of Atlantis. I know there are remote viewers who have worked on that and come back with information, and so it's most probably a part of ourselves that is going to become more and more accessible as our vibrations increase, and as we go through this next period of time. But how fantastic! I just had I have had the odd occasion, and I don't know what to call this. It was very automatic though. But I remember once I had a friend who was a psychic herself, and one of her close friends, the teenage daughter, was missing. Okay, missing. I've been gone for days. So some part of me, I'm going to have to say it was my heart chakra. Being a parent, I don't know what it was. It just went out like a laser, and then I got so much information so fast. It was like a kind of a download. I saw her intoxicated, lying face down on a couch in a very funky kind of a cottage, and it smelled like wet dogs. And as it turned out, but I didn't get any more, like, I didn't get like what the kinds of things you would get if you're like, where is it? Where is it? And I didn't get anything really specific except that she was alive, but she was intoxicated and she was with someone who was a boyfriend. She wasn't being held against her will. She was acting out and being really naughty. So that's what I got. And I told my friend, and as it turned out, she came back the next day or the day after, and I was completely right about all of it. But there was no real control. It was like an impulsive thing where, it was almost akin to like if I felt, oh, there's a kid who's been hit by a car, I'm going to lift up the car. It was an instinctual thing and not organized. So I didn't get really what I would call helpful information, except that I knew that she was alive.
Yeah, I mean, something you said that is part of our training, a huge part of our training is we spend a lot of time with using our bodies as an antenna. So engaging our senses is huge in remote viewing because in our everyday lives, we don't pay attention to these things.
Mm-hmm.
Things that, we have in our bodies that are giving us signs of something. And we also, part of the process is using, and you would understand this, automatic writing, which we call an ideogram in remote viewing. And this kind of prompts, it prompts the start, because then we have something to start with. And then what happens is when any time that you want to start adding language to something like an ideogram, that's when we start getting into the left brain. That's when we start getting things are subjective. All the truth is in that ideogram or in our bodies, how our bodies feel. And there have been examples where people have, in fact, it's not third party. It happened with me. I gave a target to my partner, and it was the bridge. I think it's in China. It's a glass bridge between two mountains where it's like glass. So so people are petrified of it. So I never knew that my partner was afraid of heights. But as we were on Zoom like this, and I was monitoring him, and he was getting cold sweats. He's like, I mean, his whole body was reacting to the fear. And at some point, and he's a big, tough guy from Finland, he says, "Can we stop? Like, Michelle, what's the target? I need to know. Can we just stop?" And I told him, and he's just like, "I'm afraid of heights." Like, I was feeling full force. So that, and then another one, this was third party that they told me, is the target was a bowl of strawberries, and the viewers started to break out and started getting itchy. He's allergic to strawberries. So it's crazy because you're tuning in, your body's like an antenna. And I'm very much get your butt out of the seat when you're remote viewing. I do not want to see your butt in the seat. I want you blending with the subjects. I want you, getting in the position of a structure. I want you feel. I'm always saying feel, feel, feel. And so we really work on that area of and so that again is a part of the training. So I like that in your story that's where it bubbled from. It bubbled from a feeling. And the only thing, like you said, in a controlled environment, if you were actually sitting down and doing a session, you would be prompting yourself, rise 10 feet above the target and describe, or, go through, I see a door, go through the door and describe. So you would have been able, so using this technique, it allows you to get more and more information.
Right, exactly. Now, I know you've been involved in some really fascinating cases and explorations with only on your own and also with your students. You've explored aspects of Bigfoot or Sasquatch, Skinny Bob. I think that was my first husband, Skinny Bob. Orbs. You worked on some homeland security issues with for the Olympics, and of course, missing persons cases. But I would very much like to ask you about the work that your class did, exploring the statue of Saint de Clare. You know, Saint Henry.
Yeah,
Henry of Saint Clair, a statue on
Henry.
Oak Island. Henry. Yeah.
Henry. Um, yeah, I don't say it as
It's
as
okay. It's okay.
So I was speaking to Gretchen. Her name is Gretchen Cornwall, and she is an author and researcher on the Knights of the Templar. In fact, she's been in the quite a few episodes of Oak Island, the mysteries of.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
She has
I
web
watched that show. Yes, I've seen her.
Horrible.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I've seen her.
So we were talking and because of my obsession, I always bring up remote viewing. And so I mentioned it to her and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I need you to remote view something." And I'm like, "Well, don't tell me anything. Don't wait, let's figure this out." And so I'm like, "Wait, okay, I'll just get, three of my students and I'll just be the tasker, the manager." So she just she just pulls out the statue and puts it down like this. And I'm like, "Okay." And she goes, "Have them remote view. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but this. And what it looked like on the screen was a wooden statue that somebody carved out. And it looked like a man. It looked old. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how
I've
else.
seen it. It's fairly primitive looking, but
Yeah,
absolutely is an effigy, a saint's effigy, and it dates from I think the 13th century, somewhere in the
something.
1200s. Those
Yeah,
are that's the era that they are discovering relics in bloody Nova Scotia from Europeans,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. So I'm like, "Don't tell me anything." And so I just do what I do. I picked three students and I asked them, "I have a target for you. Here's your target number. Turn it in a week." So they all turned it in, and we decided to have a Zoom meeting with Gretchen so that um, she can give the feedback to everyone and tell everyone what they were viewing. Well, when she saw the sessions, her head was exploding. She kept going, wow, like, whoa, whoa, because they were getting so much information, completely didn't know anything. They were getting really describing Henry Sinclair. They were describing the ideology of the knights and how they're family orientated. They were talking. Oh, one lady actually said it's some kind of man-made and natural structure from a tree trunk. And that's
Mm,
really what it looks like. It looks like someone carved. She actually wrote that in her session. So she
mhm.
was looking at it from, what it was, how the structure was made. And just a whole bunch of, I think they had they were talking about religion. I can't even remember everything right now, but there were so many things. And,
Mhm.
um, and we didn't even record the meeting, but Gretchen did. She, on her end, recorded it and she asked us if she could put it in, like she's making a mini documentary. So she was so excited about it that I don't know if it's out yet, but she was going to edit it and then put it into a documentary to show how remote viewers were able to kind of verify what she thought, which
Oh,
was
wow.
helpful to her.
Oh, that is fantastic. Well, I can hardly believe it, but we're coming to the end of the episode. My goodness, we're not that far off, but I want to make sure you have a class that is upcoming, and you have other activities, and you're all still producing that wonderful show with Jimmy Church, Fade to Black. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So tell us about your class, my dear, and how our viewers can get in touch with you.
Okay, so I have a whole bunch of classes that I teach. The next one's going to be on January 6th. It's a hybrid class with it's remote viewing and med apps. So it's for people that are very interested in healing and identifying people and things like that. So it's a hybrid of transdimensional systems and med apps. So that is a 6-week course, and that's starting on January 6th. And then they can go to my website, butterflyeffectscenter.com, and it's spelled CENTER. So butterfly effect, EFFECT center.com. And all my information, all my papers are up there, and all the information about the classes and what I teach are up there. And then also, I think your people are Bigfoot people, and I'm a producer of a new documentary out, which is a sequel called Flash of Beauty, Paranormal Bigfoot. It is incredible. I mean, it's even cinematic, cinematography.
The cinematography of it is fantastic. Okay.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Thank you. That's why I'm
wow.
not a host. I can't pronounce words. But yeah, you can look for that. And then the first one's called Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed. And they really go into the indigenous people, talking about their experience with Bigfoot, and also the science of could they be interdimensional, something maybe more than just flesh and blood.
I think so.
It's a big question.
Oh boy, we have to hook you up with our man Mike Patterson. You cannot believe the vocalizations he has, the photographs he has, the plaster casts he has, and he's such a gentle soul that he has developed a relationship with one particular family, and wow, it's I'm convinced. That's all I can say. And I do believe that these are beings that can either sort of tune up their cellular vibration or tune it down. They can become physical or move about in other amazing places.
I mean, there is a scientist on the film that, because we also have some footage of cloaking that, so they actually got it on film. And he's kind of like, he's talking about physics, and he said there's a fish, I can't remember the name of the fish, but the fish, what it does is it can cloak, and it can also mesmerize its prey. So it knows, so we already have things on the earth that do these things, so why wouldn't they be in Bigfoot?
Why not? Why not? It's a huge universe just bursting with life and the creative force, and we are only looking at a little bitty part of it. So we got to open up our brains, and I must say, I think this is a fabulous thing to do. I think everybody should do it, and it can't help but increase your intuition and those other things that are. Michelle Freed, we want to thank you so much for visiting us today. And we know how the peeps can get in touch with you. And thank you for all the wonderful work that you are doing. And I think I'm going to have to include you in my next book, which is called Midwives of Disclosure. So.
Okay, that's great.
You're one of them. You are too, Wes. You are too. You're spiritually a midwife of disclosure, although not necessarily anatomically. Gotta be careful what you say these days, right? Anyway,
I'm just glad somebody talks to me. So
yes, I know. It's nice to be seen.
Yeah.
All right, sweetie. Well, you take care and bless you for your wonderful work. And we're so happy that you could join us. I'd love for you to come back and talk more about some of your fascinating cases and
Thank you,
whatever
Michelle.
else you want to talk about.
Thank you,
All right.
Bess, and thank you, Leslie.
All right. And as we always say, we are
We
not
are not
alone.
alone.
See you on the flip side, folks. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Contact TV.
We would like to thank our generous sponsors, Lightwork Hypnosis, Euphoria and the Euphoria Chronicles, Earth Mystery News, Conspiracy Culture Books, MUFON Canada, Free Experiencers, the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters, and Variety Store Productions.
For guest booking information, please email Wes Roberts at producer@contacttv.ca. And don't forget to join us on Facebook and Twitter.